Good afternoon, my name is Lai Yi. Today we are going to present about BP Tony Hayward's ethical dilemma. We are group 20 and this is our group members. We have divided the presentation into 6 parts. First, I will be starting with introduction and background. Then Dishika will define what is ethical dilemma. Hong will provide explanation on ethical theories, theological theories, strength and limitation of ethical egoism. Then Yuting will explain about leadership theories and leadership style. Next, Kamal will provide conclusion. And lastly, Samin will present the recommendation. Now let's start with the introduction of the case. The Deepwater Horizontal was owned by Transocean and leased by BP in Macondo Prospect Oil Field, which is located 45 miles off the Louisiana coast in the Gulf of Mexico. The drilling rig exploded and collapsed on 20th of April 2010, causes it to burn for 2 days and sank in 5,000 feet of water. The explosion killed 11 workers and injured 17 workers. It was estimated 4.1 to 4.4 million barrels of oil released into the Gulf of Mexico causes it to become the largest marine oil spill in the history. Now let's move on to the background of the company. BP plc previously was known as British Petroleum. The company was founded by William Knox DRV on 14th of April 1909. The history of BP began when the Persian government, which is now known as the Iran government, granted him the exclusive right to develop oil and gas reserves in the Persian Empire for 60 years. The company was recognized for quality gasoline, transport fuels, chemical and other sources of energy. The headquarters of BP is located at London, United Kingdom. The former CEO Tony Hayward was known for a series of gaffes, which is mistake, such as his claim that the horizontal oil spill was relative time compared with the very big ocean. Now I would like to hand it over to Dishika, who will be speaking about the definition on ethical dilemma. Thank you.
Thank you, Crystal. Starting with what ethical dilemma stands for. People in a way of life, whether in personal or trade, confront with the need to create choices. They ordinarily have more than one elective accessible. Substantially, they face with the problem which elective to choose. The point is to choose the finest one. But model the finest is distinctive for diverse individual, association, and nations. Other than the choice are routinely in struggle, so the decision maker is in dilemma which elective to select. Essentially, each situation contains an ethical dilemma, that is, whether the choice is good or bad, fair and unfair, moral and immoral judgments are made from the point of view of those who make the choice, from the point of view for those who require the decision, and from the point of view of foremost people who don't take part in decision making but are influenced by them. How did British Petroleum face ethical dilemma through the spill in Gulf? At the same time, Gulf trade proprietors, especially those who depend on Gulf water for their jobs, proceeded to battle. BP's essential was on uncovering data around how it will support its monetary execution amid the emergency circumstance and give data about its worker management. However, both the capacity to maintain financial performance and capacity to oversee employees depict a great quality of administration. Hence, amid crisis circumstance, in case there is a heightening within the amount of revelation demonstrating a great quality of administration, it is very likely that the data is purposely included to oversee notoriety. The two most critical decisions for Mr. Tony Hayward was to choose between if he wanted to blame it on the employees in order to maintain the brand image or take responsibility for this catastrophe in by compensating the affected families and help clean the spill as soon as possible to also minimize the effects to nature. This presents a bigger question in front of the company, that is to protect the company's image or follow corporate social responsibility. Now I would like to pass it on to my colleague Hong. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Hong and thanks Steve for a nice explanation of ethical dilemma. So in this part, I'm going to explain about ethical theories and which ethical leadership style he has. Ethical theories can be divided into two theories about leaders' consequences and character. The teleological theories are concerned with the consequences of action, which means the basic standard of actions being right or wrong depends on good or evil generated. And the virtue-based theory is considered individual character as key element of ethical thinking rather than individual consequences. And the teleological theory has three leadership styles, which is egoism, utilitarianism, and altruism. The egoism style leader do anything to maximize their self-interest regardless of how their action affects others. And the utilitarianism style leader make a decision that greatest number of people be satisfied. And lastly, the altruism style leader cares and concern about his the others' interests more than his or herself. So in this case, the leader of BPOE company, we can say he's egoism style leader because he put his self-interest before corporate social responsibility, which means he put his brand image before the involvement and fisherman and small business owner who is victim of this accident. So since this company leader has egoism leadership style, I'm going to explain about egoism leadership styles, strengths and limitation. Egoism style leader have more opportunity for personal improvement because they always trying to be better in some way, and their basic personal need will always be met because they care about self-interest first, and they have a greater sense of personal identity in a community. And let's talk about limitation. They will lose of sympathy in a society. Like I said before, they this leader put his brand image before the victims. It means he didn't sympathize his victims of this accident. And lastly, it could be a problem in a workplace. Because in a workplace, when they achieve something, they have to give credit to others as well. But this leader will always want to take this credit. So this is all from my part, and thank you for listening. I'm going to hand over to my teammate Yuting.
Hey guys, I'm Yuting, and thanks to Home for using the ethical theory to analyze the BP case. And then I will use the leadership theory to analyze the Tony Hayward's leadership style. Now let's move on to the leadership theories. This semester we have learned many leadership theories, such as trait theory, skill theory, behavior theory, and after our group discussion, we will use the situational theory and the transformational theory to analyze the Tony's leadership. As you can see in this slide, transformational leadership is to achieve the goals of the leader, the process by which the leader guides their followers. Of course, this kind of leadership will be transformed into procedural transformational leadership by some incorrect leaders. So Tony Hayward is the leader of this style. According to our discussion, he has following three main characteristics. Firstly, he focuses on his own interest, and then he has the distorted moral values and showed little care for the others. According to the analysis by the Professor Cantor of the Harvard Business School, Tony denied it and minimized the all-year spill. And he said the impact of the leak will be modest. In addition, he didn't even apologize. Nor did he learn from his mistakes. He blamed the contractor along with his senior management. And Harvard himself participated into the yacht race. And he also didn't solve the victim's problem and even bought the YouTube's online advertisement to cover up the whole truth. Then, we will take a look at the situational theory. This theory is based on the combination of the leader's task behavior and relation behavior, and has different leadership characteristics according to the different situations. It's divided into four types. The two main leadership styles including directive behavior and supportive behavior. These are two most important. As you can see in this slide in our discussion, Tony is the directive behavior. That means the leader adopts a one-way communication strategy, and the leader decides the goals and tells the employees how to accomplish. So in this case, we can find the Tony Hayward instructed the executives to blame the contractor and ask the employees to spend money to buy the ads on the YouTube to cover up the truth. Now let's move on to the next slide. I just mentioned this. There are 4 styles in the situational series. Now under the situational leadership model, the 4 styles will be clearly displayed. They are directing, coaching, supporting, delegating, and Tony is one directing. That means he keeps himself front and center all the time, and he rarely brings forward the rest of the team. Not even indicates that it's a team effort. At the same time, he didn't listen to the suggestions of the company team or the employees. So compare with the 3 styles. This style may cause the leaders to lack of the listening, lack more choices, or even miss the better solution. Of course, none of the 4 leadership styles are the best. Instead, an effective leader will match his or her behavior with the development skills of each subordinate to complete the task at hand. So now I'd like to hand over to Sam, who will be telling you about the strengths and limitations of the situational leadership.
Thank you, Yuti, for passing the floor to me. This is MD Samias representing you the strengths and limitation on situational leadership. So the first point is being effective leader. So this means the situational leadership tries to deal with problems by teaching leaders how to adjust their leadership style according to each individual team member's capabilities and commitment on a given goal or task. Secondly, situation leaders gives leaders a straightforward and clear process for determining which style of leadership will work best with a given employee in a given situation. Now the limitations. So the first limitation states that situation leadership have a skill set just like any other worker. If the leader is adept at reading changing situations and understands what people need, then they can be useful in their role. If this skill set has not been fully developed for the leader, then the responses will not be as effective. In some situations, the new situation leader may do more harm than good because they misread the situation and formulating an answer that is inappropriate. And secondly, situation leaders take decision by themselves most of the time without consulting anyone else from the enterprise. This can hamper employees' morale.
Hi everyone, my name is Kamal and let's finalize what happened. Tony Hayward didn't have a lot of options. As a CEO of BP, he speaks for the BP. During one of the hearings, Tony added that BP conducted their own investigation and that they are not responsible for the incident. They decided to blame the contractors, and that made the company look arrogant and selfish. They promised to clean up the Gulf and fix the damages by airing multi-million-dollar ad, and Tony even stated that no one wants these things more over than he does, and that he wants his life back before the spill. But he and the company failed to deliver on their promises. Their actions exhibited that CEO and the company doesn't care about the environment and they only think about themselves. BP is still responsible for the damages caused to the Gulf and is still paying for the penalties up to date. Instead of all of this, BP could have stopped the spill, compensate the damages, rather than blaming it onto someone. They could have shown the public that they're committed to the problem, that they take responsibility for their actions, and they can be trusted. This dilemma is a classical example of organizational decision making in crisis situations that should be based on ethical principles like responsibility. Experts state that the most reliable solution for the BP to restore its reputation was the most obvious one, is to plug the hole, stop the leaking, and clean the Gulf. As an example, let's take this Montana spill, which happened on 23rd of August 2009 in northern coast of Australia. As soon as the government and the company heard about the spill, they started the cleaning operations, and by this evacuated the workers, sprayed the chemicals, sealed the spill hole, and reported all the damages. Thank you. That's the end of my part.
Thank you, Kamal, for passing the floor to me. Now I would like to recommend some recommendations for companies and leaders, what they could have been done, what they could do to improve, to overcome this type of ethical dilemmas and situations. So firstly, leaders should have clear and focused plan to tackle crisis situations. It appears that CEO Tony Hayward presided over an organizational culture that sanctioned extreme risk-taking, ignored expert advice, and overlooked warnings about safety issues and heat facts. Their failure to respond to the disaster with sufficient speed and attention was a direct consequence of this flawed culture. Secondly, leader must think about serving the communities and people. So risk management came a poor second to innovation, profitability and market demand. The duty of leaders and politicians and investors to adhere to regulations was pushed aside in the drive to build successful businesses, create jobs and deliver shareholder profits. True leaders are stewards of their organization and must lead for longer term. For example, if US politicians are shown to have put party or national concerns before matters of global importance such as the environment, they will ultimately be failing their nation and people. And thirdly, there should always be a risk management team for the company, so to tackle the situation and advise the leaders that what they could immediately do, like these situations are very uncertain, so need immediate decisions and they need to be perfect. And lastly, leadership is just not about the title, but also to get the best work from the employees. This actually have been shown in the PP's oil cleaning thing, that is ordinary people have shown remarkable leadership capabilities, volunteering to clean up the oil and help the stricken wildlife without thought or care for their own health and safety. Unlike the elected leaders, they see the bigger picture and recognize that the environment and the livelihoods of local people are more important than corporate profitability or political maneuverings. If the leaders in this crisis had followed their example, they might have made more progress in dealing with the crisis. The pictures of local people working to clear up the spill should be put before the top leaders, then Hayward, Obama, and they should every day be reminded that leadership is not vested solely in those at the top of organization or political parties, and then they should remember they can learn from everyone around them, whatever their position or role is. Thank you, everyone. And these are the references that we included in our presentation used. So thank you, everyone. This is MD Samini Yasir concluding this presentation of Group 20. Thank you.